Hi guys, welcome back to At Home with Holly. My name's Holly. I'm so glad that you're here with me today. We are going to start doing some garden cleanup. We don't have a frost in the 10-day, but it's pretty close to frost and I've got a lot of garden beds. So I thought I'd start doing them just a couple at a time, cleaning them out, harvesting what I can so that when it's time to top off the beds with compost, they are ready to go. I don't want to be doing it when it's freezing, but it's starting like today, it's in the 60s. That's a nice temperature for me to be working out there. So we're going to start cleaning out the beds one at a time. I'm so glad that you're here. Let's get started. This clean out is going to take several days. So here we go for the first day. All right, so we're going to get started on our pepper beds. I have two beds of peppers. One of them has the sweet peppers and one of them has the spicy peppers. Also, sorry for the noise of the combines in the background. It is the time of year where they are pulling off the corn and the soybeans. So I'm surrounded by fields. And so there's always a ton of that going on in the background this time of year. So I know that you absolutely have the option to overwinter pepper plants. This year, I personally had like one of the best pepper harvests that I've ever had. I am drowning in peppers. It's been such a blessing and an abundance. I've been able to donate a ton to my local food pantries, and I put up a ton in the freezer, and I've made jalapeno peppers, and I've been eating my weight in sweet peppers just as snacks and on salads and throwing them in everything we make. So at this point, this was the first thing that I decided to pull out, because once it gets below 40, peppers are not really happy. So I just cut the bottom of the plants off, and then I went ahead and pulled off all the peppers, and we've had multiple harvests already this season. So it was time to let them go. And so I just went ahead and one by one cut off the plants, pulled off all the peppers and kind of kept them separated by sweet and spicy. And then while I was there, I did pull out some of the weeds, but honestly, I'm not going to really worry about pulling out these weeds until much later. I'm just trying to get the frost tender plants out of the garden. So I finished off the first bed and then moved to the second bed. This one was the one with the sweet peppers, and it was still loaded. So just one by one, cutting off the plants, pulling off the peppers, and getting them in containers to get inside. So these are the two pepper beds after I have pulled out the plants. I did leave some nasturtium in there because I will feed those to the chickens as right before the frost comes in, because they like to eat those. And this is a look at all of the peppers that we were able to harvest today while we cut down the plants. Pretty great. So today it is cold. It is cold out there, but I want to keep going with our cleaning and clean out some of the tomato beds so that I can plant garlic. I have determinate tomatoes in two beds, and I have indeterminate tomatoes in two beds, and I want to go ahead, and they're not ripe, but they're either starting to blush or they don't have enough time to all the way ripen, because we have our a possibility of a first frost at the end of this week. We might not get one for another week and a half. So I might not clean out all the beds, but I'm definitely going to clean out the beds that I'm going to plant garlic in. But it's cold still. It's still like 42 degrees. And so I thought I'd do an inside project real quick. So I have a whole bunch of apples from a local apple orchard, and I'm going to go ahead and get them cut up, made into applesauce, and jarred up, which should take a couple hours. And at that point, it will be after lunchtime and it will be warmer, and I can go ahead and get to clearing out the bed. So just a casual day in the kitchen. We are going to make some applesauce. So I usually do them in half pints, but this time I'm going to do them in quarter pints. So I've got all these jars over here and all these jars over here, plus some half pints for when I run out of the quarter pints. Got them all washed last night and they're ready to go. Have my big pot out, and I also have a little pot just in case they don't all fit in here. So this is all that's left after we ran it through twice. I'm gonna give this to my chickens, keep listening to my podcast, and get these in some jars. All right, so that took a little longer than I thought, but we have all of our applesauce. It's the next day. We have all of our applesauce canned and washed the jars and labeled them, and they all sealed. I think we have like 70 some jars. So this will last probably a year, 18 months. So that's amazing. Now let's go back outside and get some stuff done, since I wasn't able to get as much done yesterday outside, since this took way longer than I thought. So I got my bucket and scissors and a basket, and we'll start off with the green bean bed. So this green bean bed was really prolific this year. We got several harvests off of it, and this actually was the bed that originally I had planted my sweet corn in. And these last two beds on the end of my garden, they get, even though it looks very windy today, they actually get the least amount of wind. We have a lot of wind that comes through. And this is like the safest place to plant the tall crops, or these last two beds. When I originally was doing this garden, I planted the asparagus. You can see all that ferny looking foliage to the left of the screen. That is the asparagus. And this bed that I'm pulling the green beans out of was not in my original plan for the garden. So I didn't plan for basically growing stuff after the asparagus ferned out. So this, after we trim back, after the asparagus dies and I trim it back, I'm actually going to transplant all of the asparagus crowns into this bed that we're pulling the green beans out of right now, because I really want them to be in the last bed so that they're not blocking sunlight. However, that being said, even with the asparagus blocking some of the sunlight, these green beans did fantastic in this bed. And so we were able to get multiple harvests off of this. And roasted green beans is one of our favorite vegetables in my house. So I'm grateful for that. We had planted them in the spring in other beds and they did all right. But the late summer, early fall harvest of these green beans was amazing. So I'm just snipping off all the plants at the roots, going to let the bottoms compost in place, and putting the tops in the compost bin and collecting what's left of the green beans. Pretty good. Now it's time to move over to our 2 beds of determinate tomatoes. Now these are tomatoes that we planted in the late summer after I harvested the garlic. We started them from seed and kind of had them waiting in the wings so that we could plant them as soon as the beds were empty. And I love planting determinate tomatoes for fall tomatoes. So I have 2 beds of indeterminate tomatoes. Those are the ones that grow up really tall and they'll just keep growing and putting on new fruit. And then determinate tomatoes are the ones that grow to a determined size and the fruit comes in kind of all at once within 2 or 3 weeks. So planting fall tomatoes, you have to know that if you were to get an early frost, you have to be prepared to come and pull off all the green tomatoes that are still left on the plant or lose them all. And in this case, we did not get an early frost. So I was able to really harvest a ton of red, ripe tomatoes that were ripening on the plants. Well, now we have about a frost warning about 10 days out from the day that I'm harvesting these. And so I am pulling all of the tomatoes and they're just going to sit on my kitchen counter. Tomatoes ripen from the inside out. So as long as they're blushing even just a little bit, they'll still ripen inside. They won't be quite the same flavor and intensity as they would have if they had ripened outside, but they will be 10 times more flavorful than anything you can buy at the grocery store. So I'm okay with that. I'm going to end up pulling, 100 some pounds of tomatoes on this day. And that is enough to, plus what the several hundred pounds I've already harvested, that is enough to keep us full of tomato products on our shelves. So I'm super excited about that. So today I'm just coming in. I originally was just going to pull all the tomatoes and leave the plants. And then I decided that I would pull all of the tomatoes and I would pull all of the indeterminate plants, but I would pull all the determinate plants, but I would leave the indeterminate plants for another day because that bed has lots of clips and that's going to take a lot more work and time than I had on this day. So I just went through and pulled all of the green tomatoes, and then I realized I forgot the ones in my daughter's bed, so I went ahead and pulled those too. And this is a look at after we have pulled all of the determinate plants and all of the blushing tomatoes, and I left the indeterminate plants in those 2 beds. So we have just the 2 beds of indeterminate plants. We have some nasturtiums, and then we also have our asparagus bed, and everything else on this side of the garden has been pulled minus any weeds that I still need to pull. So you can take a look at what all of these tomatoes look like sitting on my back step. Well, she fits, but barely. So this is all of our fall tomatoes. So we planted these together in the beds that we harvested the garlic out of last year. We had our indeterminate tomatoes that were planted as soon as it got warm out. And then these were our fall determinate tomatoes that we knew we might have to bring them in and let them finish ripening on the table. But this is still probably right around 100 pounds of tomatoes that will make us delicious food to eat for the next year that we never would have gotten if we had left those beds empty. And I'm looking like I put in some work. So that's going to do it for me today. I'm going to go ahead and get these things put away, cleaned up, and then over the next few days, we'll start phase 2 of the garden cleanup where we plant the garlic and start putting even more of the beds to bed. So I want to thank you guys so much for being here with me. I want to thank you guys so much for the likes and the comments and the shares. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. We have a whole lot more gardening and chickens and growing and harvesting and preserving and building projects to do. Can't wait to see you guys next time. Bye, my friend.